It's supposed to be that like rough and tough environment, and you're supposed to be rough and tough. That's expected. So what if you're not? You can still be a fantastic chef. What if you don't like have a thick skin? What if you do get offended? What if you know you've got mental health issues or things like that?
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Birmingham food podcast that is Breaking Bread. I'm your host Liam. Sitting opposite me is my brother from another mother, Carl McCaffrey.
How you doing?
I said your second name. Put it out there.
I know, people know it. Jesus. It's public information. You can find that out.
Good luck pronouncing my second name. Ha!
Yeah, Mr. High. That's not too hard.
Not if you've known me for 20 years now. How you doing?
Yeah, it's alright.
Good. I didn't realise how echoey this room is. Your kitchen's a lot less echoey than this. But
No, I just presume mine would be really echoey. There's nothing bits in there and it's all hard.
yeah, this has got soft furnishings, but it's still... There's no Jez today, so anyone tuning in for Jez, just for Jez, we apologise for that.
Yeah, it's not about. Didn't bring in.
Not so much of an intro again, because I think we're just slowly turning into Joe Rogan and having 3-hour long episodes from now on. Like, this isn't 3 hours, I'm not joking. It's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But it is long, so we don't want to go on forever with this intro. Obviously, if you want to know where we've been eating, where we want to eat, and any other exciting news, you can join our community over at Breaking Bread Bite Size. Sign up for our email. There's links on all of our social and everything like that. I'm sure you'll find it. It'll be on the show notes of this episode. Why didn't I just say that in the first place?
There you go.
If you listen to this, you'll find them. Yeah, so go and enter your email in that, and you'll get a nice little newsletter from us every 2 weeks. The only place I will give a little plug to, because I'm really excited for, massive fans of everything they do, and we've done a podcast with Barry and Gail before. Awesome people. That's Parkinson's. They do a secret supper club. Obviously, the last couple of years been messed about with COVID and everything, but this year it's back. It's in the Jewellery Quarter, 26th of April. It's going to be awesome. Like, I'll put links to that on the show notes to this episode as well, so you can go and have a look. Tickets go on sale. Tickets go on sale on the 14th of March, so in about a week. So be sure to get them. They do sell out. It's an awesome evening and an awesome charity.
Yeah,
Parkinson's UK.
The nights are very, very good.
Yeah.
We haven't been on one because they cancelled the one we were supposed to because of COVID.
Yeah. You get to meet Barry as well. Barry's a legend, isn't he?
Yeah.
Love that. So yeah, swiftly, as I said, because it's a long episode, swiftly on to today's episode. International Women's Day. This is our special episode. Normally comes out on a Monday. Stuck it out Tuesday to coincide with International Women's Day.
It's a great episode.
Yeah, well, an episode. I mean,
Really nice chat. It's a more chat really about hospitality in general.
yeah,
It's not really specific to any person or no specifics. It's just hospitality, and also touches on hospitality and women in hospitality.
it's a massive thing, and rightly so. International Women's Day. But we're very conscious of the fact that we're two men, and we're not sure what really conversation we can have about it. But you know, we're heavily influenced by the women around us. Both have
Got
strong women,
very strong wives.
strong wives, strong daughters, have
Yeah.
strong sisters, strong mothers. I think they've more than a little bit influenced everything we do, really. And we wanted something we could do, and now we've had some awesome women on the podcast over the 3 years we've been doing this. You know, too many to list. We could have just cut and spliced a few highlights from all the episodes and put out this lazy International Women's Day, look at all the amazing women we've had on the podcast kind of episode. But we didn't want to do that.
No.
And then Joe and Yana kind of...
Oh, they just said, do you want to do an International Women's Day
Yeah.
podcast? We're like,
They
all
gave
right.
us a better idea.
Great idea. We're open. If people have got an idea, this podcast doesn't have to be our ideas.
Yeah.
People can come to us with good ideas, and we'll consider if we can do it or not.
Yeah, this is much better. Just give two awesome women who work in hospitality a platform to just tell it how it is. Tell us what it's really like.
Focus on that for a change.
It's warts and all. There's parts of it that might be difficult to listen to. Some of it you might not agree with. We just wanted to give them a platform to say exactly what they wanted to say, and we kind of took a back seat on this one. Tried to get involved as much as we can. But yeah,
It's interesting. It's
I
really
find it
interesting.
interesting.
It's good to. Because I learned some stuff that I didn't know before.
There's a part of the podcast we talk about harassment, and I worked in hospitality for years, never experienced it. But the gals, they had story after story about experiences that they've unfortunately had to deal with. So yeah, it's something we could all think about, and then we talk a bit about the good things of hospitality and working in hospitality, and have a little discussion about it. Maybe we can get more women into the industry, because we could do with it.
It's all talked about in the podcast.
It's a big episode, so I'm saying.
Yeah, it's an important episode.
Yeah, it's an important episode.
And it's a lot of fun as well. Like, you might think this is going to be a bit heavy.
No.
I didn't. Some places I felt like I probably shouldn't be laughing, but half the laughter is rather shocked laughter. Like, oh my god, I don't believe that's like shock. That's crazy. And a lot of it was just, we had a lot of fun recording it.
It's Yana and Vic from Wine Freedom. There's some call out down at Wine Freedom for the week, for the month.
Oh, it's worth seeing anyway. Just see Wine Freedom with that art. It looks fucking awesome.
Yeah, and awesome wine and Wine Freedom. Wine flights from the wind. We'll get into all of this in the podcast. So thanks for listening, as always. We love you for it. If you do enjoy it, tell at least one friend, and hopefully spread the word about how amazing Birmingham is and its hospitality. Ladies and gentlemen, Yana and Vic. Yana and Vic.
Yes, never Vicky.
Never Vicky.
Yeah. Actually, can you include that? Because loads of people in Birmingham keep calling me Vicky, and it really pisses me off.
Right, we're keeping that in.
Well, I've been recording for like 10 minutes.
Oh, amazing.
Now, so
That's cool. Well, I'm in all sorts of shit.
They're
Then.
not all about your parrot.
Yeah, we know
That's
all
why I
about
popped
the
up with
parrot.
the fact about the cat, so I could look intelligent.
Oh, okay.
Right,
Well, in
makes
that
sense.
case,
So
while
it's
we're on
definitely
it,
staying in
you
there.
know when like you send an email and you respond with like, I respond with Vic, and then someone responds with, "Hey Vicky," and I'm like, "Fuck's sake!"
Yeah, but
man.
I get "Hey
It really
James."
pisses me off, man. I'm just like, my name is Vic or Victoria. It's not Vicky.
I get "Hi
Stop
James"
calling.
Yeah.
so many times.
I'm gonna stop calling you Jane now.
I'd imagine you get Jan a lot as well.
I get Jana on the phone a lot.
Just
yeah,
Jan.
when I say
Hey,
it.
Jan. Even though it's like,
Jan,
no,
no.
you got the beginning wrong.
I respond to anything though. That's the thing. As long as I can recognise it as
Oi.
my name, I'm like, I'll be fine.
Yeah, I always tell people you can call me literally whatever you want, but if you call me Vicky, like, no.
Not a fan.
Sometimes
No,
it goes
really not
too
a fan.
far. Like, somebody you see a few times and they've called you the wrong name a few times, and then you're kind
Yeah.
of stuck with it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
Well, yeah,
Sometimes
this
you
is,
can't
and this
correct
is why
them
so
there.
many people call me Vicky that have known me for like 20 years or something, and I'm just like, oh, every time they speak to me, I'm like, stop calling me Vicky. But it's gone on way too long.
That's it. But it's really awkward when they
Yeah.
ask you then, and then you have to correct it because obviously, you can't then lie. And it destroys them. And like, oh my God, why didn't you say anything?
And you're like, I did when we first fucking met. When we first met, I made it really clear what my name was, and you just ignored it. Anyway.
Yana and Vicky, welcome to the show.
Fuck you. We're not friends anymore.
Fair time, lucky. Yana and Vic,
Thank you.
how are you doing?
Not too bad.
Very well, thank you.
How are you?
Yeah, both good. I get thrown off. People
we?
never normally ask.
We work in
Nobody
hospitality. It's our job to care. It's our jobs to
don't really
pretend to
care.
care how you are.
We just ask anyway.
So as I said, we'll do an intro separate, but do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourselves? What you get up to professionally?
I'm glad you made that distinction.
So I work at Wine Freedom, as we both do, obviously. I'm doing external events with them now. I was doing a bit of food before, and there's a misconception that I'm still doing that. I'd just like to put out there that that's not me at the moment.
Well, you make all the bread.
Just in
And
case.
like,
oh yeah, bake all the
come
bread.
on.
That's right. I do still bake.
you do
all
the
the bread.
brioche, you make the focaccia. Like,
yeah. So we make all our breads in house, and that's what I do.
I love the smell of freshly
and it's
baked
all
bread in
it's
the
all
venue.
sourdough as well. So there's some real effort that goes into that.
How old is your starter?
Sorry.
How old is your starter though?
So I've inherited this from somebody else. So this was passed on to me, and I've been maintaining it for a year. So it's not that old. I don't know how old. It must be like about 2-3 years old.
Yeah. If it was 15
yeah.
years old, would it be the best bread ever?
I don't think it makes much of a difference, to be honest. Like, obviously, the longer you keep it going, the stronger the culture sort of is. But I think once you get to about a couple of years, it pretty much just stays the same. It's just maintaining it. So I don't think it makes that much of a difference, to be honest. Some people would disagree, probably.
Yeah.
But if you've got a really active starter, you've got a really active starter.
I
And it
was
doesn't matter
given a
after that.
starter when I moved into the flat that I bought like in 2016. I didn't
Yeah.
know what it was. Someone just brought it as a moving in present, and I was like, "Oh, this is this jar of disgustingness," and I just threw it away. And I didn't know
no.
what it was.
Well, if anyone wants a sourdough starter, I can give you some.
Yeah.
I've got
I didn't know
plenty.
what it was, and I just sort of accepted it as that kind of weird, like, thanks. Like, it was just gross. And I was just
Oh,
like,
you
"Ugh."
terrible person.
It smelled horrible. So I was just like politely took it and was like,
Well,
"In
it
the
shouldn't
bin."
smell horrible, in all fairness. But
It
yeah.
was just a bit weird. Can I have the sourdough starter? So now I know what it is. Now I understand. But they were so offended because they were like, "Oh, how's the bread coming along?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they were like, "Oh," and then they were like, "Oh, the thing that I gave you," and I was like,
Oh no.
"I thought you just didn't like me."
I can give you a new one.
Maybe.
There you go. Vicker's going to start baking very soon. But yeah, so I do external events at Wine Freedom at the moment. So anywhere we go for a festival, or soon we'll be doing Digbeth Dining Club. That's me.
Plug, 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 plug,
Plug,
plug.
plug, plug. That's me organising that at the moment. That's my job.
What kind of events? Like, what do you mean? Like,
So we're going to a big festival in June, if everything goes as it should. Big Food Festival. That's
so you'll
going
have
to be
like
craft
a
beer festival.
tent or something.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah, we'll have a stretch tent and we'll have a bar there, and yeah, people can come and sit down and have some lovely wine
We're going to be those wine guys at the beer festival.
at the beer festival. Yeah, I think we appreciate it. Probably, I think we fall into the same range as craft beer. I
Oh, yeah,
reckon,
for
on the
sure.
wine side. so
Yeah,
it
it
fits.
doesn't stand out to it. It's like, oh yeah, they're there.
And variety is the spice of life. Like an entire weekend of beer. Yeah, I mean, why not?
But I feel like with Wine Freedom, with it being all natural and
Yeah.
organic wine, it kind of does fit in.
That's it. It does fit in because it's basically craft wine.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
you've got
yeah,
things
yeah.
like wild yeast, some more fermentation, that sort of thing, which actually
Yeah.
there's a lot of similarities between like lambics and like different types of beers. So actually there is a lot of similarities.
And there's a lot more playing around with natural wine than there is in sort of conventional winemaking. People take a lot more risks to the extent where at the extreme end you don't really know what to expect when you open the bottle.
Yeah. And that's what we're here for.
So yeah, we fit.
Vic, your role?
So I am the new general manager at Wine Freedom. I've been with Wine Freedom for all of a month, I think. Has it been a month? Something like that.
I think it's been a little more than a month, to be honest.
I picked up the odd shift here and there, but like officially it's just been over a month. But so yeah, I joined Wine Freedom. Previously I was with Loki for 9 years running that. So I've got just around about 10 years in the wine industry. So
Which one were you based? The Great Western or?
So I was kind of more of a sort of ops manager, I guess. So I was with like right from the start. So Phil and I kind of sort of set that up. So Great Western Arcade, and then launched Edgbaston, and then Knoll back last February. So sort of right from the beginning for that one.
What was your background in wine? Have you done, what's it called? The sets?
WSETs.
That's it.
Yeah, so I've got level 3. I got like years ago. I don't remember half of it. It's the best way you can learn about wine is just drinking it.
That's
So-
what I'd tell myself.
Yeah.
And I've
So-
learned
that's
nothing,
what's
and I've been drinking
So
loads. I must be drinking it wrong.
I've got all the official like qualifications, but the best qualification you can have is just drinking wine. Because you can read, anyone can read a textbook, but you need to actually experience that. Again, that's what I keep
Yeah.
telling myself.
You still have to do the reading though. That's probably when
Oh,
you
yeah,
go
yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I was
Yeah,
just doing the
really.
drinking. I read the bottle.
It's kind of it's finding a harmony, like a balance between the two. But yeah, the best way to learn about wine is to drink wine. Really.
Had you always been into wine? Or?
No. When I first got into wine, so when I first got involved with Loki, I used to just buy 2 bottles of red from the local offie for like a £5. I think it was like Cabernet Sauvignon that I was drinking. Like looking back on it, it's
just laughing
absolute dog shit. Like, that was the extent of my wine knowledge. And then I found myself like thrown massively in the deep end. Just running Great Western Arcade on my own when like Phil would be on a trip to Italy or something, and I was like, I drink 2 bottles for a £5, and giving people wine advice, and I haven't got a clue what's going on. So I had a very, very swift learning process to deal with. And it turned out that I have a natural palate for wine and just that sort of thing. So actually I kind of picked it up pretty quickly. But yeah, it's not something I meant to do.
Did you blag it? Did you
Oh yeah, I totally blagged it. Like I kind of come from more of an art background, more like music, art, film background. And when you do an art degree, the first thing you learn if you're good at it is the art of bullshit. So yeah, not that I'm saying that we bullshit, but the biggest thing is like I think selling the story of wine really rather than the technical side. So I'm way more interested in the people that make the wine rather than like the soil types or like whether it's a north like facing slope or whatever.
I think with most people their eyes kind of glaze over when you start talking about soil or those sort of
there
things.
There are certain people who like really get off on that.
Yeah, but it's very few.
Yeah, few and far between. Yeah, so it's useful to know that stuff. But yeah, I'm way more interested in the like the people who make it, especially in natural wine, because they're all like proper characters. Yeah. And I always describe it to people. It sounds a bit weird, but when it comes to natural wine, that bottle to me is like an expression of that winemaker. It's their personality. It's like it's like a slice of their soul. It sounds a bit kind of creepy,
that's a bit too much.
Yeah, it's a bit too much. But it's like it's because the way that they make their wines, it's a lifestyle. It's not it's they live and breathe it.
So it's definitely not a very commercial setup, is
no,
it? So
no. I mean, I've
been
lucky. I've been to wineries all over the world, and I've seen some of the commercial setups, and Jesus Christ, it's there's no soul. I am definitely more of the smaller producer, the natural winemakers. It's they actually care about what they're doing, and they care about sustainable agricultural like processes and all this sort of stuff, and you can taste that in the wine. It's like any organic product, really, isn't it?
Yeah, there's always a bit more. I think with organic in general, because it's never a commercial choice, never really. When big companies go onto it and like add an organic line, maybe that's for commercial reasons. But a small
inverted organic line.
Yeah, but a small organic producer is never going to do it for the money. So you definitely see that all the way through to the product, and then in winemaking it goes that bit further where you then have the more creative characters essentially.
It's just more personality generally, and to me I can taste that.
Yeah,
it must be a good sell as well to win people, because I buy a lot of wine from Wine Freedom, and I'm a big fan of theirs.
Thank you.
And I always want to know, as you said, it's almost selling the person that's made the wine rather than selling the wine.
100%. Yeah, I mean, we do the wine flights when you come into the bar, so we do like 3 glasses of wine and just do a little taste, and we'll come over and just like for a few minutes just talk you through the wines, and just it's really about the story about that person that's made the wine. So you can kind of, I think especially when you're drinking like a craft product, it's important to have that sort of understanding and relationship of the person who's made it, because it's part of that package. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're sort of there to do. Yeah. Again, like sort of blinding you with information. And also Wine Freedom and a lot of other wine places in Birmingham, the whole ethos is to demystify wine and make it make it approachable, more approachable. Really so if you're there going, the pH levels in the soil, blah blah blah, like anyone's just going to sit there going like, don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're really intimidated. Whereas if you've got a funny story, or like a slightly offensive story with some swear words in there, and like because there's plenty of those, and I think people can kind of relate to it a bit more. It makes it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it depends. It depends on who's sitting there. Basically, we do get some people in who really know their wines and who do want to know all those technical details, and who really.
And again, that's the art of hospitality, isn't it? Really, it's like read the room,
read the table, ask them as well. Like, sort of, have you done much wine tasting? Do you know much about wine? If they say we've got no clue, then great. Kind of tell the stories and make it as easy for them as possible. If they've got a whole load of knowledge that they come in with, then obviously you have to deliver on that level. And I think it's that, like, making it right for whoever comes in. That's the skill.
Is there much snobbery from like the traditional kind of wine people
towards natural wine?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, we've interviewed a few people, and this has come up a couple.
Yeah, having come from a more traditional wine sort of side, 100%. And I've always been really interested in natural wine, and I've been met with a lot of like snobbery to that.
Yeah, I get it even from my
It's
parents.
not real
I brought some
wine.
bottles.
It tastes like cider, or like
Yeah.
the like classic one is that natural wine is just an excuse for badly made wine. That's you get a lot.
Yeah,
Which,
I
to
mean,
be fair,
sometimes it
yeah,
is.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like there are some people that make shit, awful wine, and then they're like, "We'll just say it's a natural."
But obviously you get that with conventional wine as well, so it doesn't
Oh
really
yeah,
matter
totally.
either.
But it's and I kind of
Still
understand that
variety.
point of view to a point. And I've only been in the wine for 10 years, which is a long time and also a short time. But having seen the natural wine movement grow in that time, like it's a totally different place now than it was like say 6-7 years ago, where I went to quite a few natural wine fairs and was just like, this is really awful. There was a lot of gimmicky sort of stuff, like wine that had been like fermented in a cow hide, and I was like, nobody wants that. I was just like, what is that? What is disgusting? And they had the actual like hide there, and like there was loads of hipsters just fighting over trying this wine, and I was like, this tastes disgusting, and it was just like proper gimmicky stuff.
We've
So
been
I can
to
kind
wine
of see where that view comes
tastings.
from.
We've been to wine tastings before, like when you go to buy wine or decide on new wine to buy.
Like trade tastings.
Trade tastings, where they're talking about the wine and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing! It's amazing! You taste it, and it's faulty. Like it's not.
I
It's
quite
just
like
not a
certain
good wine."
faulty wines.
Okay, you can say what you want, but it's not a good wine.
Yeah, so it can be used by some people as an excuse for poor winemaking. So I totally get why there's that snobbery.
Yeah,
But
I met
it's-
somebody recently who, so I don't even know what her relationship to wine was. I think she's somehow involved in the wine world. And this was on a night out, we were all quite drunk, but she goes like, "Oh, yeah, natural wine, but natural wine is just shit." It's just a blanket statement. I was like, all of it? I guess it's just
every
shit.
bottle?
To be honest, my view with people like that, and especially especially the more educated sort of snobby wine people, when they say that kind of stuff, is that actually I think they're intimidated by it because they don't understand it.
I wonder. I just thought there's no
Because
point
it
arguing
doesn't
if
follow-
that's where you
It
start.
doesn't like the way that natural wines are made. It doesn't follow that conventional process that they know and understand. It's a bit, it's wild, and it's a lot of the
literally.
winemakers, they go with how they feel, rather than following a recipe. But that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, you get more
and
interesting
I
stuff.
think those sort of snobby, more traditional people, they're like, I don't understand it. I'm scared of it. So like, what I'll do is just like say it's shit.
Maybe
Because I don't understand it. So I think it's kind of more that.
I have a
that's
bit
the
of a
feeling I
take,
get.
but I might be talking absolute nonsense because I
Go
don't know
on.
a lot about it. But I wonder if it's to do with like the democratization of wine. So like before, some champagne companies, wine companies could charge a fortune to people, and it was like, well, they'll pay this because they know about wine. But
Yeah.
anyway, and natural wine comes along, and they're trying to bring it to younger people, new people, and they're like, no, it's not for them. It's just for people who know about
people of the
wine.
bow ties.
It's for the culture.
and,
Like a
That's
little,
just some
a
extent.
little bit like art. You know how art was a bit like.
Well,
that
they've
as
just
well.
it's about removing that status element of,
Yeah.
of having a first growth Bordeaux or whatever. It's
Maybe, but to some extent, wine's already there because it's in every supermarket now. You get really
Well, yeah.
cheap wine, and
2
whether
bottles for
that's
a fiver,
obviously
if
that's
you
not
like.
good wine either, but it is everywhere. And like just looking at Tesco, how much wine Tesco stocks now to what it was like 15 years
But then
ago.
someone who
it's
really knows
insane.
wine would be like, yeah, but
They can
the
ignore
cheap
that
wine's
part.
for them.
Oh god, yeah. I mean,
Anyone
I
who
do
knows
go down
wine
that
will
one.
pay a
Right.
fortune
Jesus.
for wine. and
Right.
it'll be from this family, and I just feel like it's a bit like the internet's come along and made information democratized, and I feel like that's what natural wine's doing for the wine world.
I think that's how some people in the beer world feel about craft beers as well, that you can't do, all the things that craft beer makers play with, like all the whatever different flavors you get in craft beers that you would never see in commercialized beer or in traditional beer making. People complain about that as well. Like you can't use juice in a beer, you can't use, I don't know, lactic sugars in a beer or something like that to give it a certain flavor.
Yeah, no, there's
So I think
definitely
that's similar.
snobbery. There's also snobbery,
There's snobbery in everything.
in the other way around as well. There'll be people like, oh, I only drink natural wine.
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah.
You've got it the other way as well.
I only
I
drink
mean,
Georgian
like, I'm a
orange
total
wine.
craft beer snob. Like, I'm really into my craft beer, and yeah, I walk into most places and I'm like, I'm not drinking this.
Yeah, that's the thing as well, definitely.
Yeah, I'm definitely a craft beer snob. So it's easier to be a craft beer snob, I think, though, these days.
It does make you laugh as well, though, when people come and they're like, oh, you show them some wine. And like, oh, yeah, but do you have any Georgian orange wine? And it just make you laugh because like, well, yeah, there are good Georgian orange wines, but so everything else you're not interested in is just that one thing.
But again,
one
that's that
specific
one
area.
thing that they know, though, isn't it? So it's what people are comfortable with. So they've come in and they've obviously tried a Georgian orange wine.
You
so they're
think
like,
that's what
I
they're comfortable with.
understand.
I
Yeah.
just think that's something they've picked up somewhere as something interesting. So they're just trying to
yeah,
make
no.
themselves. And this
Yeah.
is probably something you should take up.
I think it's probably more to do with,
interesting.
yeah,
by
I think
bringing
it's got
it
more
up.
to do with they've had something like that, and so they understand that. But what they don't realise is, and I found this a lot in wine. Someone will say, "Oh, I love I've had a Georgian orange wine, so that's what I like."
Okay,
and you're
yeah.
like, "Oh, there's a lot of variation in that." It's like, okay, I don't know specifically which like Georgian orange wine that you had, but I guarantee if I line them up, like some of them, you'd be like, "Jesus Christ!" This is awful." You know, it's you can't just like blanket term things like that. So, but that is how I think a lot of people who are new to wine and to beer or whatever, they'll just be like, I recognise
one
that, so
thing.
I must like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to have this problem all the time back in my Lakey days when people would come in and they'd be like, I want a Chateauneuf de Pape, and you'd be like, sweet, that's 40 quid. We'll start from the 40 quid mark, and they'd be like, well, I can get it for £8 in Lidl. It's like, well, you carry on. And it's like, it's gonna be shit. And then having to explain to people that it's a region, it's not that, like, so to them a Chateauneuf de Pape is like saying like
Wine.
Blossom Hill.
Yeah.
That actually it doesn't work that way. So they think that they're being ripped off if they're going to pay 40 quid for something they can get the exact same thing, inverted commas, from Lidl for, and it's like, yeah, that's not how it works. It's a totally different product, you know. So big and that's...
Where does your wine knowledge come from, Yana?
I don't have a load of wine knowledge, to be quite honest. I am one of those people where if you catch me in front of the wine shelf, I will blag it, but I will tell you as well. Like, I'll tell you, I know a few
Like,
of the
I am
wines.
making this shit up.
I have had a lot of the wines, and I can tell you which ones I like, and I can tell you the stories around those.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely one of those. I don't have a load of wine knowledge. I used to work at the Radisson Hotel here in town back in the day when they had a very nice Italian restaurant called Fellini. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but it used to be a really, really nice Italian restaurant, and we had very nice wines there. And we had like this wine tower in the middle, which was very nicely displayed. But we'd get wine training from the suppliers. Essentially, they'd come in and do wine training with us. So that's where I picked up a bit of wine knowledge and where I started to appreciate wine.
What were you doing there, front of house or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was at uni. I was doing service.
But you became a chef.
I was a chef before, so yeah, that's my first. That was my first step into hospitality. I was a chef first, and then I came to Birmingham to study after. So I wanted to study hospitality, just something related. Basically, as a chef, as most chefs know, you're standing up all day. It's not very healthy. You kind of feel the aches and pains very quickly in that kind of job. So I thought I needed something to fall back onto. And decided to go to uni. So I came here to study at the College of Cakes.
College of Cakes?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
So it's
you,
a thing.
That sounds
bullshitting
amazing.
and you blagging? That sounds like a blag. I mean, I'm familiar with UCB, but
It is
College of
UCB.
Cakes. No.
Well, it was called BCF TCS when I went there. The Birmingham College of Food, Tourism and Creative Studies. There you go.
I always wondered, like, because I've over the years had a few people who have hospitality degrees, and I'm like, what is that? I didn't even know you could do a degree in hospitality.
It's a business degree with
Okay,
hospitality.
cool.
There you go. So I did
Yeah,
that.
I always
and
wondered like,
went-
how that works.
worked on the side at the Radisson, yeah.
That's funny because we saw Radu earlier. He's from Radisson. Did you guys recognise each other?
Right, no.
So once you finished uni, what did you go and work in the kitchen or?
I didn't actually. I decided I had enough of hospitality for a while, as lots of people do periodically. I think it's one of those industries. And I did a graduate scheme for Deloitte in management consulting. So I was a consultant for a while.
So very
is
different to
much better
selling natural
paid,
wine.
equally terrible hours.
As you said, like it's with the people in the hospitality industry, every now and then we try to escape.
Yeah.
And like we like the hospitality industry is
I
like, yeah,
do
you
this.
carry on, you go and
Yeah,
flirt
so
with
I
that.
think
And
I
like,
do
you're
this-
coming back.
I do it about every 5 years. I'd come back every time. And I think
Where are you in your
it's-
5 years at the moment exactly?
Well, I was escaping during the pandemic. I'm doing my master's in psychology at the moment. I'm at the end of it, but I've already been pulled back into hospitality. It's just too easy. It's just one of those industries where when you love it, and you'll always end up back in it. When you really hate it, you hate it, and you will never do it.
It's a hard
it's
job.
It's a
like
hard
there's
job.
no getting around it. It is a hard job.
It's hard all around.
And
like,
I think a lot of people don't realise that.
I think that there's always that fight between front of house and back of house, and one will tell you theirs is the hardest, the other will tell you theirs is the hardest job. Having worked both, it's just all hard.
We're all martyrs. We're definitely
all hard in different ways.
It's funny how you're doing this as well. 10 years I've been away from it, and kind of half the reason we started the podcast.
Yeah. I think it's just one of those industries where the positives are really positive. It's just that I think the kind of teams you work with and the kind of closeness you have in a hospitality team, like in a restaurant team.
Oh yeah, you can't beat that when you've
that.
got the right team.
Yeah,
it is
and you
like
don't
it's
get
amazing.
that in
It's
other
a real
industries.
family.
It's just not a thing. It's also because you spend so much time at work, so you have to be a family. But when it's good, it's really good. That's the thing.
Yeah, when you have like that perfect setup, and like for me at Wine Freedom, like it's such a lovely team, and like coming to work feels like. I mean, I don't come skipping in. I'm like, yeah, but I'm closer to that though. You know, like I come in and I'm like, because it's such a beautiful space as well.
Yeah, it's nice people.
Yeah, nice people, and also the customers are so lovely as well, and that makes
That's
such
true.
a big difference.
That's true. We do have actually really, really nice customers there.
Yeah, and
So
that,
I was
that
at the same
makes
time
a huge difference.
When I started working at Wine Freedom, I started in service, and I was at the same time working at another place in town, which I'm not going to say where it was. And I'm just saying the customers at Wine Freedom were so much nicer than the other place.
Oh, I really want to know now.
End with spoons.
No,
Do you think Yana has worked in a Wetherspoons?
It's a very popular and much loved place that I worked at, and I'm definitely not going to slag off the customers.
But to be honest, though, I think that is the like. Speaking out of turn here, but that is, I think, it's really the customers that make or break a hospitality job for people. Because I mean, I've worked in places where you're like, it's just like an endless stream of dickheads coming through the door, and you're just like, fuck my life.
One of my last jobs in hospitality was the Elizabeth of York. Mostly.
Oh, very nice. Last time I went in there, I had to leave. It smelled so badly of vomit. I was like, oh, jeez. It's horrendous.
Crazy place. I've spoken about it before when I've done a podcast with my old boss that I worked with there, and it was a weird place. Like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it was quite normal, just your average shit Wetherspoons. But then, like Tuesday afternoon, just become a really strange place. People just got weird. Like it's just strange things happened, and you were like, "What? Why is that happening? Why on my shift?"
It's spoons. Yeah, I worked in the Briar Rose many years ago, probably like 2001, something like that.
Wow. And, that's many years ago now.
Jesus.
Scary, isn't it?
It is a bit scary.
I know.
But yeah, actually, weirdly, I went out to the Briar Rose for I met up with a friend, and being from the wine industry, and I've had all these amazing experiences and travelled the world, and we were like, let's go on a spoons crawl.
That was brilliant.
So yeah,
I always fight going to a spoon.
I haven't been to a Wetherspoons in ages, but I was like, to be fair, I mean, you know, it's good cheap shit. You know, sometimes it's
Shit, yeah.
I mean, they've got some all right lines in it, but I wasn't drinking the wine, obviously.
Cheap shit is, I think.
It's hard to like much about it. The owners seem like a dickhead.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing.
He's an absolute
To be fair, staff are quite often really nice.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, like
Do you know what? The training is really, really good, actually.
Ah.
It's stuff I remembered.
I
Like,
don't
long
remember
after I
being
left.
trained.
Yeah, really good training.
I don't remember being...
You felt like there was a
it was a
greasy
long time
ladder
ago.
if you wanted to climb it, but they always all their promotions were from within. So it had bits that were good, and then weird stuff that was just crap. Like they had that CQSMA, which was like their weird thing, and you got your bonus, and it's like, well, if you can afford to give us a bonus, why don't you just pay us, man?
Well, the thing...
Why don't you just pay everybody in the first place?
What I hated about working at the Briar Rose, because like when I applied for a job there, so I used to go to like Snobs and Ramshackle and all those sort of clubs when I guess I was probably about 18. I was 18 at the time, and it was the place where all my friends would go out for a drink before going to those places. So I was like, sweet, I can get a job there. And so when I'm at work, I can kind of see my friends, and then like when I finish work, I'll meet them in Snobs. That would be great. What I didn't realise is the way that Spoons worked. I don't know if they still do it now, but if you worked in that place, you couldn't then go there socially.
Oh yeah.
So that really fucked everything up. So then suddenly, if I wasn't at work and then I was going to Snobs on a Wednesday night, all of my mates would be in there having a drink and I wasn't allowed in. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, this is really
That's
backfired.
unfortunate.
This is for an episode on
make
poor
sense.
life choice.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh,
It's a very
bollocks.
strange policy because most
It's
places
really
I worked,
weird.
the staff off duty were the biggest spenders.
Exactly. That's it.
I mean, I think obviously the reason they do it is so that other staff aren't giving staff free drinks. But what they didn't realise when we were working, we just gave everyone free drinks. So it was
You
actually,
just do it anyway.
Yeah.
I think currently about 3/4 of the money I make at Wine Freedom goes back into
Yeah,
wine.
yeah. I need to give you a better discount.
Was it tips as well? They used to search. You make you empty your pockets before and after the shifts to make sure you didn't take tips.
It's a bit militant, isn't it? But did they actually pay you tips?
No.
Oh,
nothing.
so that, yeah.
So if anyone tried to give you a tip, sometimes they would
Right.
try. A customer would try it. You'd be like, "Please, mate, go straight in the till. I'm not allowed to keep it."
This
Just
goes back to
No
actually when Zoe was
way.
talking about stuffing tips in a bra.
yeah. That's what made me
We've
think
all
of that.
been
to be
there.
honest.
At the Radisson, we used to have this thing where they had a service charge on, as hotels do, but obviously people were allowed to ask for the service charge off, and then any cash tips went straight to us. So I used to do this thing where if I knew a table like was going to tip me really well because I had good rapport with them, I'd just take the service charge off, go over to the table, and then say like, "Oh, by the way, there isn't a service charge on there."
But you're like making proper
Gambling.
heavy eye contact. You're like, there's no
Yeah.
service charge.
Don't know if you've
Wink.
noticed, but there's no service charge. It's sort of really gambling for the cash tip. It used to work out really
It's
well.
sad, isn't it, though, when you're in jobs like that where you like, I mean, because we're not in America, we shouldn't
Yeah.
have to be like, please tip me, because I mean, it's not really a tipping culture here anyway, is it? But
Not,
It's
more for
improved.
restaurants, less so bars. I
Yeah.
tend to find restaurants have 10%. It's just a standard.
yeah,
I think it's improved a lot, to be honest. People are a lot more readily tipping these days than they used to. Although you can really tell a difference when there's Europeans here. There's more of a tipping culture. They always tip better.
Yeah. Americans, do you get many Americans? Do they tip well?
No, Irish tip well.
Yeah, Ireland's a big thing to tip, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like same in America. It's working in hospitality is a real profession. I'm not saying here. I don't.
No,
see
it
it's
is in
not real,
Germany
but,
as well.
like,
It's a real profession, and you do an apprenticeship for most things, for front of
Yeah.
house as well. Everybody's done an apprenticeship.
it's not unusual
Really?
to see like
Yeah, something you
40,
take pride in.
50-year-old barmen in Ireland. It's quite common.
That's it.
It's a good job to have.
It's a good
you
job.
know, where it's only in England where people look down on them for some fucking crazy reason.
Yeah,
stop looking
here.
down on us.
Well, here essentially it's a student job, isn't it? And when you're a bit, even as a student, people constantly ask, "Well, and what are you going to do? Like, you know, what's your plan? What are you going to do after this?" And you're like, "Well, this is my
It is,
profession.
yeah,
Thank you."
it is a bit shit, isn't it? I mean, it's not so bad for me because obviously I'm in like upper management side, but I mean, I look younger than I am and I'm quite alternative looking. So people obviously just look at me and think like, oh, she's a glass collector who's done nothing with her life. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sweet. Because yeah, it is kind of looked down upon as a job. What I personally believe is that everyone should have to work at least 2 weeks in a hospitality job before they're allowed to go into a restaurant or a bar, because you know what?
Yeah.
I think their opinions would change drastically. We work fucking hard, man.
I've said this before. Instead of national service, we should do like a year in hospitality. Everyone should do a year in hospitality.
I think they should.
Go and
I think
have a
there are
look.
certain industries,
But
that
then the
people
wages
should
will never
have to
go up.
work in, and then like I reckon like there would be fewer dickheads in the world.
I think so too. I
'Cause,
feel
yeah,
like you
yeah,
see
totally.
like the best and the worst, and then everything in between at hospitality. I've been in a local bar, Irish bar, where I used to run, and not run physically, obviously, because I don't run.
I keep wanting to go into an Irish accent, but I know I'll only embarrass myself.
You don't do
Every
it.
time.
That's where we come back
But-
to the racism.
But like, yeah,
Xenophobia.
I've had like blokes come in on like a Tuesday. They've just lost their job, and they're like, they've got mortgage and kids, and they're like pretty much crying.
Well, you're like,
Pouring their heart out to you,
you're a
like,
counsellor half the time.
yeah.
I mean, yes, I used to work at my first ever bar job was at the old railway. I don't know if you guys remember that. It's not there anymore. It's by where Millennium Point now is. It was like a proper like old sort of Irishy bar, but Black Sabbath had their first gig there, and it was like a proper, you know, you'd be there till 6 a.m, and the police used to sort of go for a drink there, so they kind of ignored the fact that it was open and that sort of a place. Yeah, it was like it was an awesome bar, but I can't remember my point now. What was I saying?
This
was
bar
also-
sounds good though.
It was saying about how
Oh yeah,
you
so,
are a counsellor
yeah,
sometimes.
that was it. But yeah, that was very much you got your regulars, and like it would be oh, my wife's just left me, and they would be in there like 10 in the morning every day having a drink, having a breakdown, like an extended breakdown, and so like your job was very much counselling like the guys on the bar. You don't really get that much, well, definitely not in Wine Freedom anyway. But
not the
probably
kind
in
of place.
Spoons actually. But your regulars who were like they really rely on actually having that contact with the bar staff and sitting at the bar and like actually having
You get that in other
building that
places.
relationship with people.
I worked at the Plough and Harbour one for a little bit, and you definitely have that there. You get a lot of regulars and a lot of sort of older people as well, and older couples that come in almost every day, and they know all the staff, they know everybody's names, everybody knows them.
It's a real community, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a proper sort of little community pub.
It's
So
It
you get
seems
that
like
in
the
those
community,
places.
really.
Yeah, it seems like community pubs are something that's sort of there's not many left anymore. There used to be one like everyone's pub was a community pub, and you go in. You
Well, like
said
your
you'd
working
know
man
everyone.
working men's clubs and all that sort of
Yeah,
place. Yeah,
and
it's
they just
a
seem
real
like they're on the decline now.
community hive, really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in Digbeth, you don't really have a community as such in Digbeth, so you don't get that kind of clientele. You don't have a community pub. There are some little pubs around, obviously, like the Anchor or
Yeah,
the Old
yeah.
Crown.
Well, that's
but
just
even
full of
there, you
load
don't
of
get that.
hospitality. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
that's your community. Go in there on a Sunday night.
There's about 5 million flats getting built in Digbeth at the minute, so
Yeah, and there are a load of flats in Digbeth already. I just don't really know where they go because they're not necessarily going out in
No,
Digbeth.
I've thought this. You're walking around, you're like, if it's quiet, you're like, I know for a fact I've fixed the internet for half these people. There's thousands of people in these flats. Where are they?
Where are
What are
they?
they doing?
but that's the magic thing about hospitality though, like share the bad times, and then on the flip side someone's coming in for their birthday, their engagement. you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
see it,
It's really nice to be a part of that.
You really get to understand people, and yeah,
Actually, it reminds
it's
me
one
of-
of my favourite parts of working in hospitality.
There was a
just
couple
meeting
that I had
people.
at Loki who I was there when they met for the first time, so I sort of kind of knew them separately, but we all had a lock-in and drank, and then they met for the first time, and then I ended up going to their wedding, and then they had their first child, and it's like, I was there for that entire thing, like it all happened there, and it was all around drinking and like and people coming together, and it was just like kind of I was like, I'm part of that. I fed the alcohol to make this happen.
Did you take credit for?
Yeah, totally.
Did you give a speech at the wedding?
I did not.
An unwanted one, just stood up anyway.
It would have definitely been one to feature. But
I made it.
I was like, I was integral to this. Like, I hope you know. It's like, I'm not getting you a present. You need to get me a
Yeah.
present.
Why am I not on the top fucking table?
Yeah, for sure. It's like, do you even realise, like, I actually fully enabled this?
I don't want to get things like, I feel like I'm bringing things very serious, but I feel like this is very important and needs to be talked about. Obviously, one of the
I feel
reasons
like
we're
I'm about
here,
to be told off.
International
Oh, shit.
International Women's Day. This is getting released on that day. Specifically, we talked about people looking down upon hospitality.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems with not enough women in hospitality.
I don't know how you feel about it, but the question was why there's a lack of women in hospitality. I don't think there is.
Oh, there is. There's a massive
I don't
lack
think
of
there
women
is.
in hospitality.
Yeah, okay, we're gonna argue. Cool. I just haven't. I
No,
know.
it's a
I
fact.
know so many places that are run by women and have like mainly female staff. So
How many
I'm
out of
from a
all
wine-
the places that you know? How many
Well, so
do you know that
I'm-
are run by women?
I'm
and
only
not
really
mostly
speaking
female
from a
staff?
wine background. So from
Okay.
my wine background, I mean, if you look at Vagabond, it's got a female GM, female assistant manager. Actually, I think pretty much all the staff bar one guy is a female. And then Loki, I think they've got like 22 girls working there and like 7 guys. So, I mean, that's probably mainly down to me, but
I mean, we're also at Wine Freedom, apart from the owners being male.
yeah,
Staff
we're-
is mostly
so
female.
just from my, I mean, that's the past 10 years for me. And then you've got like Abigail at Arch 13, Grace and James. Obviously, they're a couple, but mostly female team. So that's what I immediately know is you know, the wine part of it. And then you've got Holly. So for me, Jana's looking at me like,
This is why I think it's a tough question, because like
hadn't noticed.
national statistics will tell you that it's a fact that there's not enough. But then you can't speak for the whole country. You can only speak on your own experience. So that's why it's a hard question.
I just know what there is.
Even if you look
locally.
at those places, yes, some of them are owned by couples. That's right. But even if you look locally, you will see that most restaurants, at least, will be owned by men.
And the head chefs
will be men, and most of the kitchen teams will be men. It's improving slowly, but it's still very much the standard across the country.
You think of the 5 Michelin stars, I don't think there's a female head chef in any of them.
See, I really don't know the chef side. That's
No,
Yana.
there
I haven't got a clue about chefs.
I mean,
to be
it's
honest
always
with you.
traditionally been that you have more men on the back of house side and that you'll have more women in the front of house side.
Why do you think that is?
It's not a very welcoming environment in a kitchen.
See, I actually quite
as
like
a woman. Yeah, I like working in a kitchen.
Yeah.
As a chef, yes, I like working in a kitchen, but it's not a very welcoming environment to walk into as a woman. See, the restaurant where I did my apprenticeship, I was the first woman to ever work back of house, and I was told before, so I did a placement there before, so I had already been in the kitchen. And 100% I was given the placement because my parents used to go and eat there. They knew them, and it was kind of, I'm sure the head chef was pressured into giving me the placement by his sister who was running front of house. Again, traditional gender divide in hospitality. But so I was already in the kitchen, and when I suggested to the sous chef that maybe I'd want to do an apprenticeship there, he said, "You'll never get it." And I was like, "Why?" And he said, "Well, because our head chef is never going to have a woman in the kitchen. He doesn't believe in women in the kitchen."
So it's
And
weird, isn't it?
I'm by
Because
far not the only person who's had that kind of experience. I mean, obviously I did ask and I did get the apprenticeship, but based on that, the whole time that I worked there, I always felt like I had more to prove than everybody else. And it's that kind of thing where I've recently had this chat with Chloe from Verbena in Sturchley. So she's had similar experiences to me. And we talked about it. So there's this famous article of Marco Pierre White going on about women in the kitchen, and women don't have a place in the kitchen. This is fairly recent.
I thought that's where women belonged in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I'm
wait.
so confused.
I know, it's so
You need to let that
confusing. Where he basically said, "Yeah, we're too weak to lift pans." That's one of the things. So too emotional to cook.
Is this where
Wow.
you then like pick up a pan
But
and
that's
smack him around the head
but
with
that's
it?
we were having a
Like,
chat
take
about
weight.
it, and I asked her. I said, "Did you do the same thing?" Because I most definitely made a full-on effort to lift the heaviest things in the kitchen, always
why
by
you're a head
myself,
chef.
and never asked. Exactly. I mean, I've definitely benefited from it. No, but it's the thing.
Marco Pierre White. You're talking about the Marco Pierre White who sold his soul for a bunch of shit fucking steakhouse.
Did he
Yeah,
have a
well.
soul?
But I mean,
Yeah,
it's still
it was
an
never there in the
opinion.
first
He did. I think he, like, you read White Heat and stuff from years ago. I think he definitely had the passion for the industry and stuff. But
It's gone.
He's clearly just a bigot.
I think, you know what?
Yeah, but that experience, that opinion, kind of still prevails on
course,
some level in the industry that women are too emotional for back of house, at least. That we're just.
I mean,
not,
yeah.
we're
I'm
just not cut
emotionally
out
dead, so
for
I'd
it.
probably be really good in a kitchen, to be honest. And like, I've kind of grown up in male-dominated industries anyway. So, because I came through the music industry, so in hospitality, I found it, I guess, a lot easier because I've compared it to the music industry. When if you're working as a woman, especially as a sound engineer or anything technical, like fuck, that's hard.
Yeah, but exactly.
That's really hard. So for me, the hospitality's been a bit of a breeze because you're just like, oh, people are a bit more accepting. But
yeah, but then compare that to back of house, you will find exactly that kind of environment.
Yeah, I better say, like, the Michelin star chefs I mentioned, and stuff, I'm pretty sure all of the owners would be pretty open to it. Like, they'd be 100% open to having the female head chef or female managers, but they're just
the
not,
way
it's just not there.
But it's
I
that
would
route,
imagine.
the route
There's-
into there isn't really there, I guess.
Even
That's
like
it.
on the
There's too
podcast.
few coming up, but it's that type of thing that you will always have. It's not just this industry, it's not just this environment, it's not just women coming into a male environment. It also works the other way around. There are some industries which are absolutely female dominated, and coming in as a man is just as difficult.
Ballet.
And it's
Yeah, I'm going to give my ballet career a good try.
Well, no, I mean, I had a few
But
friends in
but
ballet. who had a
it
hard
doesn't
time.
matter which way it is, as long as there's sort of one gender dominating it. When you come in as the sort of marginalized gender, it will always be a little bit harder. Whether they mean to make it that way or not, that's a different thing. It's then onto the sort of dominant gender within that industry to accommodate basically, and to just make it easier, and to like show, you know, you're there to support, and it's fine for people to come in. You know, you don't have to come in as a woman into a kitchen and prove yourself. You can literally just come in and just be a good chef and just do what everybody else is doing. But there's a way of making it comfortable for people, I suppose, which is only just starting in kitchens now. It's definitely starting. There are definitely more women going into that route.
Do you think it's got more to
than it
do
used to
with?
be.
I actually had a similar conversation with some chefs that I know from a kitchen in a restaurant in Birmingham, and the reason that they gave for why they don't like having women in the kitchen is because they don't feel comfortable to come up with their usual like disgusting banter. Which,
But that's the thing, isn't it? The disgusting banter shouldn't be there in the first
we can't talk about like all these like horrific things because it'll offend the women in the kitchen, and it's like, and
yeah,
I
we're
mean,
so easily offended.
but this is the thing, because I'm very much the sort of person that I would like out banter all of them, and they'd be like, "Geez, Vic, that was disgusting."
But that's
I
the
think
point as well, isn't
they
it?
don't
The
wanna give
disgusting
that out.
banter shouldn't necessarily be there in the first place. That's also a thing for some other men. Not all men are into like.
Oh yeah, who were like really
banter.
just like, oh, this is horrendous. But
I think that's the thing generally
some
in the
girls are fine with
hospitality
it and
industry,
stuff,
and
yeah.
especially in kitchenware, it's like it's supposed to be that like rough and tough environment, and you're supposed to be rough and tough. That's expected. So what if you're not? You can still be a fantastic chef. What if you don't like have a thick skin? What if you do get offended? What if you know
Yeah.
you've got mental health issues or things like that? You still need to be able to fit in, and it shouldn't be a thing in hospitality in general. It's generally that expectation in hospitality just that you're just really thick-skinned,
So
and
do
you
you
just
think it's
suck it up,
banter
and you never
culture
have
that's the
any
problem
personal
then?
issues. I think in hospitality in general, it's that kind of expectation that you don't come in with personal issues. You don't come in you know, yeah, maybe not being able to just take everything that's being thrown at you,
It's
and everything just
difficult
gets
though,
glossed
isn't it?
over.
Especially in hospitality, because I mean, I was talking to Freya at Wine Freedom about this the other day, you know, and why it is so hard doing this job, because we invariably work really long shifts and we're knackered, especially if, you know, you're working like AFDs like a few days in a row, and like people expect you to be like, hey, welcome, and like really
singing or
happy
dancing.
no matter what happens. And it's like, and this is also why I say people should work 2 weeks in hospitality, so they understand that like actually we like have to really push through some heavy shit sometimes. And then, you know, all it takes is like a bad TripAdvisor review. They're like, oh, the girl who served me, you know, was a bit of a miserable bitch. And it's like, well, maybe she just got dumped by her boyfriend, and like, or, you know, or maybe she just got a phone call saying her dad had died, or like, do you know what I mean? You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But and there are so many things obviously that can make you not quite in the right frame of mind. But in hospitality, it's expected that you just like put on a smile, and you're lovely to people who can quite often be complete cunts to you. And you've just got to stand there and be all like, okay, that's fine. Yes, sir. The customer's always right.
And I think it's fun.
and
I mean,
it's
customers
fucking hard
can't
work.
customers can't see what's going on with you, and it's not the
No.
customer's responsibility to ask you whether you're having a good day. You know what I mean?
But it's
that's
nice.
not the
It's
thing.
so nice when they
But
do.
the rest of your team and, you know, your managers and your employers, they should take an interest, and there should be a thing where it should be perfectly fine to come in and say, hey, I'm having a terrible day.
Yeah.
This has happened. And there should be some kind of, you know, somebody should listen to that. And I think it's been a thing for too long in hospitality where everything just gets glossed over. It's like you say, I'm having a terrible day, and somebody else will say, I don't care. We have got service to do. We've got things
But then
to do.
isn't
You
that
need to
true
function.
I'm sure that's the same for a lot of industries. I guess that just depends on having bad bosses and managements,
I'm not
really.
sure. I feel like it's changed
no.
like a lot, especially like offices. I mean, we met someone once. I'm sure that it was I'm sure it was just a fancy name for a HR role, but it was like
Head of people.
director of happiness or
Oh,
something.
Jesus
It was
Christ.
like,
Oh, that just didn't work.
they organise the days out and stuff. So like, I think
Head of
business.
happiness.
I mean, even
Yes, the
kitchens.
saddest person in the world.
I mean, kitchens, you know, boiling point. It's well documented, like how bad kitchens were in the like 90s and before
Yeah.
that, and up until probably a few years ago. And then
Yeah.
from speaking to head chefs, they tell us that things are slowly changing, but not
They
as
are.
fast. I mean, like even Gordon Ramsay made Claire Smith his head chef, and he purposely made Claire Smith his head chef because her management style was completely different to his. It was a very relaxed, quiet kitchen.
Yeah.
And then obviously she's now gone on to open her own restaurant and is one of the best restaurants in the UK, but maybe the world. What do you think employers can do, in your opinion, to kind of change things, not just in the kitchen, but like front of house?
Give
the
us
whole of hospitality.
better hours, because the hardest thing about working in hospitality is just this expectation of the like AFD, which if no one knows what that means, it means all fucking day. And that's just like a standard.
I think so. The thing with hospitality is it's not just not an industry that's not accommodating for women. It's
not accommodating for human beings.
It's not accommodating for human beings.
It's like
actually
it's kind of, it's weird because we're kind of sort of slagging off a little bit, but then we're the people that
No,
keep
but
trying to
everybody-
escape and then keep pulling back.
Well, yeah, but everybody
But-
in hospitality will have the same view. There won't be anyone working in hospitality
yeah,
who thinks it's
totally.
the best industry in the world. It's one of the most fun environments. It's one of the ones
Yeah.
where people are to some extent expected to just run on passion for the industry, and that
Yeah.
can't be a thing. It's one of the worst paid industries with the worst hours and sort of the
It
highest
destroys
stress
relationships.
levels.
I mean, I'm lucky because my boyfriend, he's a general manager as well, so we're like a bit of a general manager power couple. So we kind of help each other out. We've got when we're working from home, we're both gamers, so we've got these like huge like curved monitors, and we sit there like just getting sucked into spreadsheets. Yeah, so I'm quite lucky. So we work similar hours. We're used to this lifestyle, but my ex-boyfriend was a 9-to-5er and it just doesn't fucking work. He'd be like, "You're working every weekend." I'm like, "Yeah, that's my job."
That's when
And
the
I'm like,
bars
"You're
are
working
open."
9 to 5 in the week when I'm off." That's a bit annoying as well. And you know, it's really hard. I mean, you know, we know several people who their other halves don't work in hospitality, and trying to balance that out when like, and even just socially as well, you miss out on so many social occasions because they happen on Fridays and Saturdays, which they're your busiest days of the week. So it's like, it's not just a job, it's a proper lifestyle commitment.
So when I was working in a kitchen, I didn't see my friends. That's not a
Yeah.
thing. If you have friends who aren't working in the same place, you can forget about it. You will never see them.
But this is kind of why we have like this sort of weird social subculture of hospitality, like the
Yeah.
Anchor on a Sunday night, where
Industry
because
nights.
that's industry nights, because that's the social kind of groups that we can work within that framework, because we're in this different world together, and it's really hard to marry that up with like normal life. You know, and even little things like I've got a flat in a big house, and I'm my other half and we're the only people in that house that work in hospitality. And so it really sucks when like all your neighbours are getting up at 6 a.m, running up and down the stairs and slamming doors, and you're like, "Fuck, I'm tired." You know, I got in at like 2 a.m. And it's really difficult to try and slot that in. And I think a lot of people don't think about that side of it.
So
It's tiring.
I know it's quite simple to say, "Oh, just don't give us AFDs," but like, so you're saying like just maybe working so you only get like,
Well, it's not healthy to
Where
work
does
12
the
hours
money
Yeah.
come
shifts.
from is
Do you know
the
what I
question,
mean?
though,
yeah,
isn't
just
it?
get
'Cause
more
obviously-
staff. And,
Pay us
yeah.
better.
But
I
that-
mean,
I suppose
yeah.
a lot of people, individuals, because I listened to a podcast with a chef, and he was saying that he was quite upset because they do 4 days on and then 3 days off, which sounds amazing. But he said that means for 4 days I'm working like 12 to 15 hour shift.
Yeah.
He said I'd rather just work 5 or 6 days and do like
Yeah,
8
100%.
hours or-
But I mean,
Yeah.
at least you do get the time off then. Like I said, I used to do 60 hours
But I think
a week, and I had
Because
one
when
day
the thing is,
off.
you
That's
work those
even-
four
That's too much.
days, and then when you get to your first day off, like that's a
Yeah,
write off,
knackered,
because
yeah.
like you feel like you've been hit by a bus. You spend all day in the bath, or either asleep and then in the bath, just trying to ache, because like so soothe your aching limbs. Because if you think you're on your feet all that time,
from the outside.
and
feel
I am
like-
not getting any
But
younger.
that's the thing, is from the outside. The thing is, I admittedly in Cambodia, not in the UK, but I've run my own businesses. I've run my own bar and I've run my own bakery. And you always start out thinking, well, I'm going to be different, right? I'm going to be the different boss. I'm going to pay everybody fairly. Everybody's going to get all their holidays. Everybody, but nobody will get burnt out. Nobody will be overworked. And you start off thinking that way, and it's fantastic.
And then you get money hungry.
And you don't get money hungry. You just realize there's not enough money coming in to
Yeah.
actually afford that. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And then, reality comes back real quick, where you think, okay, yeah, I would like to do all those things, but I'm not really able to do it. But that doesn't keep you back from still having the right kind of environment for people to work in. It's one thing people having to work really long hours.
It's like, it'd be nice to
for
have a break.
for
like,
not a lot
yeah.
of money. But yes, things you can do a lot of really simple things as a manager or as a business owner in hospitality. That is giving people breaks. It's one of those things.
Again, it's
making
one of
sure
those
that
given in
works.
hospitality that, like,
Giving
if you have a
people-
break, it's a sign of weakness. And to be fair, I'm
That's it.
guilty
And it
of that.
shouldn't be, because everybody needs breaks. We're all human. Everybody needs breaks. So that
Feed
kind
people
of
on their break
thing.
as well. Like,
Feed people. That's it.
Yeah,
But this is the thing, when you work in hospitality, it's like if you do have food, like, you take a bite of it and then you run and serve
Yeah,
some
and
more
that shouldn't
customers,
be
and
a
like
thing.
that's how it goes.
That shouldn't be a thing, and it doesn't have to be a thing. So all of those things, like me having had a business, yes, you might not have money to pay as much as you want to. You might not be able to like give all the days off that you want to. But those little things you can easily do. You can listen to your staff. If somebody comes in and they look like they're having a shit day, ask them if they're having a shit day. Have a conversation. If it's really bad, see if they can go home. That's actually,
Give them a
you can
glass of
actually
wine.
do that. Well, yeah, maybe don't.
That's always
don't encourage
my go-to.
alcoholism.
I mean,
Ready
a
to
glass
have
of wine. If someone's having a bad day and like they've just, again, to use the example of just broken up with their boyfriend and they're working, like, sit down, have a glass of wine for 5 minutes. You'll
Don't give them a glass
feel
of wine
little
if
bit
that's
better.
not the thing fixing it, though.
Or a brownie.
Yeah, but it's those kind of things you can do. You can listen to the people who work for you.
Just
you
be
can see
human,
what they
basically.
need. Just be human, and it's
Yeah.
still a thing where just because we've come out of this, as in we've grown up in this industry, and it used to be that way, doesn't mean it has to be that way now. You can make a difference, and there's lots of business owners and lots of managers out there now who do that already, but it can still go further, and it's something that needs to be pushed a bit more.
Even little things like, either subsidizing or paying for taxis home, because especially with a lot of
Yeah, keep
younger
people safe.
well, yeah, just little things like that go a long way. Because again, when I used to work at a Weatherspoons, I mean, it was like back in the day. I think they've changed it now. You would be rated until 12, like sort of midnight, when the pub actually closed, and that's when you stopped getting paid, but you'd be expected to do the clean down. And so I wouldn't get out to like 2-3 a.m. and I'd have worked for free for that entire time, and then I'd also have to pay for a taxi home. Or, I mean, I used to just walk home to Erdington because I was getting paid so badly that I couldn't justify paying for like a £15 taxi.
I think
So
that's
I would walk home like 4 miles or something.
I think that's really important in an industry that relies so much on really young people as well. And quite a lot of the time you do have young women work in front of house. And it's exactly that. They work for you until 2 a.m. Where do they go then? How do they get home? Like, take an interest, make sure that they get home safe. That is a thing.
Things like that
definitely.
really make a big difference.
What do you
I used to work
think?
for Spirit Group? They used to give us taxi for £1. So anywhere you went, it was just one. You just gave the taxi driver £1, and the company.
I'd be
paid
like,
the
I'm going
rest.
to Nottingham.
See, this is now. I was slagging off spoons before.
Sometimes
Turns out
we
they're
did
really
do a
good
shift.
employer.
If we knew we were going away on a stag do or something, we'd do it like a day shift and then get the taxi to the airport.
Cheeky. Very cheeky.
What do you think kitchens could do to try and encourage more women to get in, or maybe just don't stereotype and don't let them in the kitchen? What can they do to try and turn that around?
She's not-
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think part of that is that culture, that kitchen culture, like you were saying, the banter and this and that, just sort of making it.
It's a hard thing to turn around and go, we
It's
don't
a
want
hard
any
thing
more
to turn
banter in
around
this
'cause
kitchen,
no,
please.
obviously
Or the type
not.
of banter, that's a hard thing to sort of push out.
It is, yeah, but there's I don't know how to frame this. I mean, obviously I've also worked in the kitchen. Yeah, you want some of the banter because when you work in the
Yeah.
kitchen, it is a lot of pressure, and some of one way of dealing with that pressure is the banter, and it's definitely just being able to swear at people and things like that.
And burn them
It's
mildly.
right, burn them mildly, those kind of things. Maim them a little bit.
I've heard a lot of that come from kitchens.
No, I mean,
just
it's one of the
general
reasons
burning
why
banter.
why kitchens are a bit of a rough environment is because you have all that pressure, and part of dealing with it is like being able to swear and being able to explode every now and then when you need
Yeah.
to. It's in front of us, you can't do that.
Oh, we can.
Yeah.
It ends up on TripAdvisor. It does not make you look good.
No.
I think the problem with kitchens as well and becoming a chef, it is a proper career choice, whereas front of house is more things that people still do on a casual basis. So you get a lot of women there because they don't necessarily stay in it for a very long time. In a kitchen, that's your career, essentially. If that's what you've learned, that's what you want to do, that's a proper career choice. And you're on wages there as well. It is still that kind of environment where it's very difficult for a woman to take maternity leave. Those type of things. That's difficult in hospitality in general. but
Oh yeah, God, I
even more
couldn't
so
even
in a kitchen,
imagine
taking
like
that
if I
career
had
break.
a kid, what the hell would I do? Like I
Because
couldn't
you
come back to
can't, like
hospitality.
in other jobs, say in an office job, you can work until you go onto your maternity leave. You can't do that as a chef. You can't stand in the kitchen heavily pregnant. That's impossible to do. So that's a different point. It's different to that being that environment, but that's, in my opinion, something that also holds women back from choosing that as a career, as a long-term career. Like I had a similar thing where I thought, yes, I love this career, but I need a backup, because you know that at some point you can't do it. Maybe you can't do it in the long term. Front of house, you have a similar issue, but there it's more that you have 0-hour contracts, which are so popular in hospitality.
Yeah.
They're great when you're working casually, and you also want to be able to say, hey, I can't work those days, whatever. It goes both ways. But if you want to do that as a career, that's not an option. You can't work on a 0-hour contract.
And a lot of companies, they exploit 0 hours
Yeah.
to suit themselves. That if it's 0 hours, it's usually more beneficial to the people telling you here's a 0-hour contract than the person signing
It
the
tends to
0-hour
be.
contract.
I've had to explain to the Radisson before that it also works my way. If I tell you a day that I can't work, I can't work that day. You can't make me work it. That's the beauty of a 0-hour contract. But,
I think it's definitely useful for like smaller businesses where you
it's very useful for all businesses.
yeah definitely smaller businesses where it's like we would love to give you all these hours, but like we have to protect the business at the end of the day. It's a lot harder. And having come from a background of running small businesses, it's getting that balance with staffing is so difficult, and the whole AFD thing and breaks and contracts and all that sort of stuff, because things can change rapidly day to day and you have to try and protect the business. But it's finding that fine line of protecting the business and also looking after your staff, and that's where sort of the management comes in. Really, it's not easy.
No. So in general, I think it's a mix of creating the right kind of environment, or also just putting it out there. Just like when you go recruit people, just if you want women in your kitchen, go recruit women. Like look for women and find them. Don't just like put an advert out and then be like, oh, but no women applied. Like actually go try and find them.
So that's a pretty good segue as well. On the flip side, looking at the positive, if you could talk to, say, if you could go into UCB now, or even further down the line, go into like a careers there, a sixth form or a school, and try and convince somebody young to go into the industry, how would you convince them?
See, I find this really difficult because I know it's a tough industry, so I don't know if I would go and convince them.
You're like,
Just lie low.
awesome. Don't ever listen to that podcast I did. Like, it's not a good idea.
I think what I think the way forward is for women in the industry is to actually get female-run businesses and to encourage women within the industry to start their own businesses, start their own restaurants, because that works really well for men within the industry, and you do get some female-run businesses that work well, and I think that's, to some extent, that's the way forward. So I think my advice would be more around that. If you have a great idea for something, you're a creative chef, you love cooking, you love hospitality, try and find your thing and help, like basically how to get help with business plans, those kind of things, how to get into like your own business.
And then you create that healthy culture.
And then you create that healthy culture, exactly. Basically create the business that you want to see. So I think that would be something where I could see myself coming in and advising people.
Why don't you sit your own kitchen?
I was just about to say the same
Well,
thing.
I've run my own business for 6 years. I've had in Cambodia, not here, and it's really hard. Hey, I mean, it is really hard, and I've thought about doing something
so
here
you
again.
could do it here.
Practice what you preach, man. Come on, set up your kitchen.
I don't really want to.
You are not selling this.
I'm
at
adopting. I'm 2 weeks away from my adoption panel. I'm going to have a child. I don't really wish to
They
start
can
a
work in the
business and have a
kitchen. It's
child.
fine.
Yeah.
It's frowned upon.
But there must be something good about the industry that you're both
Lots.
still in it.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of great things. There's lots of bad things. I think if
You
you're
can travel the world.
It's like with any career, though, isn't it? There's good and bads to it. And like, I mean, this
it
is
attracts
just sort of what
workaholics for sure. That's what I am.
Alcoholics.
Yeah, that as well.
Oh yeah,
Workaholics, alcoholics.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like we kind of do it to ourselves, really. Like again, me and my other half, we are workaholics. Like we don't stop.
See, I say all these things about hospitality. I completely thrive on pressure.
Yeah.
And just having some kind of
It's
job to
quite
pour
fucked
myself
up, isn't
into.
it? I'm exactly the same. It's like, you know, when the shit hits the fan and like everything's going up, you're like, yes, this is my time to shine.
Everything's burning.
And I'm just like, fuck, like,
I know that's why I love events so
Just
much,
some
because you know
masochist.
before you have an event, it's the worst thing. Like the build up for it, it's the worst thing, and the day is going to be the worst day. But when you come out of it, it's just amazing.
You come up.
So you feel so
There's
good.
a lot
for
of
having done it.
firefighting involved. And actually, I used to volunteer for the fire service. Maybe that's why I'm good at my job. I'm good at putting out fires.
Literally.
Yeah. Which is actually quite a useful skill to have in a hospitality environment also.
I think coming back to the whole, like, what's going wrong in the hospitality industry that deters women, I think one of the big things that we haven't touched on at all is harassment in the industry, and that is a big thing. That
It's
is
getting serious.
that is serious, needs to be talked
Yeah.
about, because it is a big thing, and it's a big thing on all levels. There's harassment between colleagues, there's harassment from management to subordinates, and there's not
Or
just
from the
men
customers,
towards women,
really.
towards customers, from customers.
I've had it way more from
definitely.
customers.
Yeah.
But then you've got that.
Yeah, me personally, I've had
Yeah.
it from customers, but then I've seen every other.
But then they
possible
pay you
way.
for it.
Yeah,
It's
they're not
like-
paying for that.
it's-
They're not paying
oh,
me
yeah.
enough
Yeah.
to touch
But
my
it's-
ass.
It's that
Including
awkward
the
thing.
rent price.
I remember.
I charge a lot more for that. No,
But yeah,
but
so
it's
different,
not great. It's not great, particularly
No.
because you have
We
so
laugh,
many
but it's
young
awful.
women in service, like literally, 19-year-olds. They can't deal with it. They don't know
No,
how
but
to.
we're just
they don't
expected
know.
to take that.
That's it, and
Yeah.
and they don't know at that age how to react to it. How to, I mean, some do, but a lot don't. How to put people in their place, and they shouldn't have to know how to do it either, because it shouldn't be a thing in the first place. And then again, that's one of those things where it should feel comfortable to go to management and say, I'm not going back to that table because they're being terrible to me, and for those customers then to be removed, because that's not an acceptable
But the
way to
trouble
behave.
is, and I mean, just from my many years of working in these sort of jobs, is actually often management is the problem, because I've worked in many
Well, that's a
places.
different thing, yeah.
I've worked in many places where they've hired female staff, good-looking female staff, knowing full well that they'll get those tips and that the customers will like them. I mean, I've had many years ago, my manager turned around to me after I said, you know, this old creepy guy keeps touching my ass, and they were like, yeah, and he's spending a lot of money, so can you just and I was like, fucking seriously, like, you're supposed to be here to
So there
protect
you go.
me,
Yeah.
and you've just told me to like just shut up and take it because this guy is spending a lot of money. Like,
There
what
we
the
go.
fuck?
Another great
What the
reason
fuck?
why hospitality industry is not fantastic for women.
Just
Yeah.
out of interest, would
You're like, where was that? I'm like,
obviously it might be different for it shouldn't be different for independents or chains, but like in an employee training or handbook, is there like a section on how to deal with like harassment or something?
There's hardly ever anything that comes up that way. I
So
think
that's definitely
I
something
think
they
in
could
some
do.
businesses it gets dealt with when something really serious happens, and that's usually when something internal happens. Then
You
all
went-
of a sudden you
It's too late though.
get
You went
some
to
kind of
college. Do
training
they not
around
bring it up at college? But it never comes up how to handle
It's
harassment.
not really a college
No.
thing. It's
I mean, I don't know if it
no, but
does
if
now.
it's
It was
the
a long
industry
time
they're
ago
going
that I
into.
went.
yeah,
business
it's
though.
a
It's up
difficult
to the
one,
managers
isn't
to deal with that. Like,
Yeah.
surely you should.
No. I'm talking about how you'd have to deal with it if you ever come across it, rather than the manager dealing with it directly. Like at college, would they give you advice on
No.
if this situation comes up, you go to your manager. If your manager doesn't do anything, you do this, or this is how you handle it.
I doubt it. Like I said, I don't
I
know
think
how
most
it is
people
these
just use
days. but
I think
it
most
was
people
never
would
a
use their
thing.
common sense. Like in that case, I was just like, oh, this has just happened, and they were like, yep, that's fine. That was bad management. I mean,
It really depends on the manager. Hey, I've had managers who were really good with it. Like, again, I can mention the Plough as an example where I've recently worked where, I was working on the door and there were some guys sat just there who just kept just asking me questions in a way that was really personal. And I was like, oh, I don't really want to talk to you. I don't really want to answer your questions. And yes, I can push back. That's fine, but it gets annoying at some point. And so there I said something to my manager. And he immediately was like, do you want me to kick them out? I can kick them out. I was like, no, it's fine. I just don't want to be on the door at this point. So then he said, like, fine, I'll go on the door for you. And that's a good way of handling it.
I mean,
But it doesn't always happen that way.
I had this situation at Loki play out a few times, and weirdly and unexpectedly to men. So you get your sort
It
of
happens always.
yeah, and I would go and have to deal with it. Like I remember I had one young guy who was like 18, 19, and he was good looking guy, kind of looked like Harry Styles, like really young looking pop star looking guy. And I think it was like a hen party or something, typically a hen party.
Oh, they're the worst.
Oh
yeah.
my God. Like, and he came into the kitchen and he was like, I don't want to go back upstairs. And I think he'd passed some glasses or something, and they were like, oh, you've got such long fingers. I can imagine what you could do with those fingers. And all this sort of shit. And he was fucking traumatized because he's like a really shy young boy. And so I had to go upstairs to these women and be like, I've got a member of staff like who won't come out of the fucking kitchen because he's so embarrassed. And, you know, you can't treat people like this. And these were like lawyers, you know, these were high standing members of the public, but it's like, oh, it's all right for you to sort of do that. So I dealt with many situations like that.
I think the worst comes out in people when they're in a kind of party situation.
Grabbing guys'
like,
cups
well, we're having a
and
great
stuff,
time.
Yeah,
my ex-boyfriend
just
used
like,
to work
what
at
the
Picture and
fuck?
Piano, and they had loads of Hindus there, obviously, and they regularly just like grab us balls and things like that.
Can
Just
you
go
imagine?
for it.
See,
Imagine that happening the other way around. There's no way.
So yeah, like I've, especially having worked in hospitality for a while, like yeah, very much at the beginning, you just accepted you get your ass felt at a tenner, whatever. You know, it's just what happens. But
Don't leave that.
but I mean, in my experience, especially the past maybe 5 or 6 years, I just don't get that anymore. Maybe it's because I'm old. I don't know. Shit, I've just realised that's what it is. But no,
She's not missing the harassment. That's not what she's saying.
Our culture, no, I'm not. The culture's kind of changed. Like guys are afraid to do that stuff now, but actually, I've seen like young males being targeted more, like with the harassment. It's really weird.
I've still haven't recently worked in service. You still see that a lot, and you see it a lot more towards younger girls working in service.
I just don't want that to be misconstrued. I know we laughed every time you said about it.
Yeah, it's not funny.
Yeah,
It's really not funny. That really shouldn't be
not
happening.
funny,
Like,
But this is again, I think, also kind of part of the environment you work in.
I think
You
that's
have to laugh about it.
Yeah,
in
well,
a
that's the
way.
thick skin you grow when
Yeah.
you've worked
That's
in that
kind of my
environment for a
point,
long
is that
time.
when you've worked in this environment for a long time, you're just like, oh,
and
you
it's
just
a
brush
funny
it off.
story in this situation in this
Because it
studio,
hasn't been
because
dealt with properly by managers,
feels
because
like a
they do
crack,
things
but-
like say, oh, just, you know, they're spending money. So when the person that is supposed to be looking after you and protecting you just tells you to brush it off, it becomes something you just do. You just brush it off.
Yeah,
But
it's
that's
definitely
so
not
wrong.
And you make a
acceptable,
joke of it because what else can you do? Because like you're being paid to work in an environment where you're supposed to just accept it. So what do you?
Yeah, and
Which that's
it's
wrong
still
then.
to a large extent. That's
Yeah.
still the industry, though.
So, yeah, I'm not
That's
saying
still
it's
the
right.
environment in the industry.
Yeah,
and
not
again,
right.
That's what I'm
it's
saying. We know you're
changing
joking.
and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
work for.
We've got to know you a little bit here, and we're having a laugh. But somebody listening to this in 2 or 3 weeks' time, sitting in an office, like they're not going to take it as a joke as we are.
Yeah,
They might
yeah.
be
No,
Yeah,
obviously.
serious about that, like, you know.
No, it's not funny at all. It's not funny
But
for
I
you
know
when
that,
it happens
I'm
either.
just
It's not
saying.
funny
Yeah,
for me.
I know,
When
I
it
get
happens, not funny for anyone.
No.
And
It's definitely
it's
something managers and companies can do, is make sure it's like the staff training on it, so a young 18-year-old does feel like, so if this happens, just to let you know, it's not acceptable, and if you feel that in any way uncomfortable, you come and tell us and we'll make sure it's dealt with straight away. If everyone knows that straight away, then that's a good help.
It's so fucked up
Exactly,
that we
that's the
even
right
need
way
to
to
do that
do
though.
it.
Because I mean,
Yeah.
even now, I mean, I've been in that situation loads, and actually, I find it easier as someone who manages that situation when it happens. Like, I can quite happily go in and be like, okay, you need to get out. You can't do that to my staff. But when it's me in that position, like if it were to happen like tomorrow, I would probably still just be like, oh, okay. Like I wouldn't, because I don't really like confrontation from a personal point of
Yeah.
view. So I would probably just be like, yeah, okay. And I'd just put up with it and deal with it and go. But when
think
I'm protecting
I
someone else, I will like, I don't give a shit.
I think I've over time just developed ways of making people feel really, really uncomfortable when they do behave that way towards
Yeah.
you. So you get your own little strategies.
I think maybe this is something that they need to teach in school, to be honest with you. It's like how to deal with like harassment
With
and
harassment in
uncomfortable
general.
situations, and actually just like standing up for yourself in general. And
But there again, I mean, we've brought up examples of harassment towards women in hospitality and towards men in hospitality. It does happen towards men as well. I'd still like to argue that harassment is one of those things where, as a woman, you will, by the time you're an adult, have had many examples of it happening, and you will know that, you know, certain things like you walking down the street in the dark when it's late, you're going to be scared on some level. Those kind of things, that's normal for you. It's not necessarily something that's normal for a man to grow up with and really understand on that level.
yeah,
So again, then when you have businesses that are run by men, managed by men, they don't necessarily think about it because they've never had to consider.
Yeah, they
it.
don't think that when you finish your shift at 2 a.m. and then they just send you off, that you're like, oh, actually,
I'm scared to go
Yeah,
home.
exactly.
Go home. I'm scared to
and actually, maybe
get a bus or something like that.
Yeah, because again, I've had female staff who they won't get the bus after work because they said, well, they don't feel comfortable, so then they'll pay for a taxi, so they're having to spend more because of this whole situation, whereas like some guys don't have that same issue.
And we said about maybe we should teach people how to react to harassment. Maybe we should teach people to stop being fucking creeps.
Yeah, shit, man, that's a really good idea.
It's unfortunate when it's an environment where there's alcohol involved. Like,
even like we shouldn't have to be reactionary. It should just not
even
exist.
people who think that they're perfectly decent people all of a sudden.
Yeah, these people doing it don't think they're doing. They're not doing anything. They're doing something wrong.
No,
they
and
just
then,
think,
and
oh,
that
this is
word
fine.
Banter comes up again because banter is one of those things which that can mean anything really, and that
But I
there's
think,
a lot of banter in hospitality on all levels. Again, between staff, between management and staff, between customers.
We all have
and
tough
staff.
skins and a dark sense of humour.
Yeah.
Like I always
Most
say
of that
that
banter isn't very welcome.
it's just it's kind of how you get through it. I always say that before I got into this industry, I was a really nice person.
I was never.
But I love it though as well. I do love the banter, and I do love I actually really enjoy that. If that were to go, I'd actually be quite sad because that's what gets you through the hard times. Actually, is when you can go to the kitchen pass and just like say something awful, and then everyone like kind of join in, and it's kind of how you get through these sort of like long hours.
I know, but there's boundaries within that, and I
sure.
think these boundaries need to be made clearer within businesses because it's also to protect people. Because yes, what I take as banter, the next person might get really offended by, or might feel harassed by. And if you're somebody working there, you have banter with one person, somebody new starts, you have banter with them, they take it the wrong way. They go and report you and say that you've harassed them.
That's reading people, really, isn't it? But,
and they
yeah,
probably
but it
leave
is
the
and it isn't because
business.
you shouldn't have to deal with that. So there should be, even though it makes the work environment a bit more boring, there should be clear guidance from management. What's acceptable?
You need a
what
banter
is not
policy.
Acceptable. You do need a banter policy.
You need a banter policy.
shit
Actually, this
as
would
that
solve so
sounds.
much. Though it's like you can banter about these things. That's fine.
It is.
You
but
don't talk about people's
that's
sisters,
it.
about
You
people's
don't-
mothers.
Yeah, you don't ask them whether they had sex last night or like who their new boyfriend is. I don't know. It really, as bad and as boring as it sounds, yes, a banter policy or some clear policies around what is deemed a bit of harmless banter, what is deemed harassment, is necessary to some extent.
So what one person thinks is banter, the other person would not think is banter. So it's really,
Yeah.
I think that's the problem we have in society. Like everyone's
Well, we're all different, aren't
Talking
we?
about-
We've all got different boundaries. We've got different levels,
Yeah.
and that's what makes us beautiful people. But also, it can make it difficult.
and it's
Because if we're all the same, it'd be pretty boring. But yeah, it's bringing it back to the whole what a lot of hospitality is built on is the ability to read people and to read a situation.
Chefs
think
don't
it's-
learn how to read.
Yeah.
I think
They're
it's the
dealing with like
business.
five other
Being a
people.
chef, that you don't have to see the people and you can swear at them profusely all the time.
I feel like a lot goes to the business as well. So you have like Sam and Tyler, you know pretty much what they stand for and what their whole ethos is from the outside. So you can choose to work there and say, well, I'll be happy working there because I know what their morals are. They fit with mine. Same with like Zoe and Punks and Chances.
Yeah.
It's just painfully obvious what she stands for. So yeah, I'll go and work there. So
Things can still go wrong though because they don't necessarily see
Yeah.
everything that happens.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, and it's then that thing of that it's made clear that they're approachable and you can go and talk to them. Like we've had incidents there before where we did have that conversation afterwards where they were like, well, you can talk to us about everything. Just like make it clear, from the start to all of your staff. If like whatever happens, bring up examples that
I think
you
it's
want them to
definitely-
talk to you, come to you, tell you.
It's definitely easier, I think, for me these days because I'm older and wiser in some ways, and I find it much easier now to call up, my boss or whoever and say, okay, right, there's this issue needs to be dealt with, or like there's been this problem with this person and we need to deal with that. Whereas when I was younger, you again just would shut up and put up. Like there's no way now that I would put up with somebody sexually harassing me like a customer or a member of staff and not be like, actually, yeah, no, shutting that down. But that just comes with age. And I think as you get older, your tolerance for bullshit is way lower. But, you know, it's not really right that people should have to go through that journey.
No, exactly. And it's on to management to make it perfectly acceptable to talk about those things and bring them up when they happen, not like 5 weeks after, because then you can't really do anything about it anymore.
I'm all for just barring people that pull that sort of shit, though. You know, and that's the nice thing about working for an independent, is that you can just say, you know, if there's a customer who is causing, it doesn't have to be sexual harassment or any kind of trouble, you have the power to go, you are not welcome here. You can't really do that for a lot of bigger places. It's very much the customer is always right.
But that comes back to staff training as well.
The
staff need to know they have that power to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then trust the staff not to abuse that power and just start banning everyone that dislikes them.
Yeah,
So
it's difficult.
Sorry. So whose idea is the Kate? Is it Kate Fishlock?
Casey Fishlock, yeah. I think she contacted Sam, didn't she, on Instagram and inquired about doing an exhibition. Is that right?
Yeah,
because this
Sam,
happened before
Sam quite
I came along.
likes her work generally. I mean, she's quite cheeky with her artwork, and I think
That's really nice.
I like the way you put. She's quite cheeky with the artwork.
Yeah, that's one way.
One way of putting it.
Yeah, her artwork tends to be quite explicit in places.
Well, I mean, I put all the artwork up yesterday, and over the period of 10 hours, hence why I'm covered in dust and tired. So her work is explicit. That could be, it's explicit. It very much explores, a lot of what we're talking about, really. The female view of things. Jan's looking at me like, going, do you need some? I love her work, actually. It's great. And you guys are coming to the launch on Friday, which should be really good.
It's on for a while, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on for
a month.
For a month. So people can come down and look at it anytime. You can come down on Mother's Day if you want to bring your mum along. So watch our Instagram for that one, I guess. But Katie Fishlock's work on the surface, I think probably looks, it's definitely all about the female form and like female view. But it's really about exploring femininity for everyone, really. And that's what I really love about her work, is it's not like, you know, it's not just for one audience. It's very much encouraging like guys also to explore their relationship with their feminine side, which is actually, I think, a big part in actually what we're talking about. It may be sort of getting people to think more about not harassing women.
It's always a good start.
Yeah, you know, and just
surprise.
Because we're living in an age now where I think it's actually more acceptable for men to express their female side and not be called like metrosexual or whatever, and not to be seen as a weakness. And in the same way for females to explore their feminine side. I mean, I've grown up in a very male-dominated environment, and so actually it's only as I grow older that I am exploring my feminine side, because I've not really been able to, because it's a male-dominated world that I've been in, where you have to have a tough skin. You know, you can't be emotional at work, and you have to just like grin and bear it and carry on. That's very masculine energy that makes that happen.
I think for me, femininity has come around to a different kind of place where it's like you say, it used to be that idea for me that because I've always worked in this very male-dominated environment, and you know, it's all those kind of things like you're not wearing nice clothes, you're wearing whatever uniform or chef's whites or whatever. And I've always had short hair since I started working in hospitality, just because it's much easier. And I used to struggle with that kind of like still feeling feminine and having all those things. And I think it's come around for me that doesn't define femininity.
No.
Like,
you don't
what
have
kind
to
of
wear,
haircut you have.
You don't have to wear a
you
pretty
wear,
tea
all of
dress
that
and
doesn't-
make it
No,
to be feminine.
exactly. Like that doesn't define femininity. So I can still be an incredibly feminine person, woman, without all the traditionally feminine traits, essentially, if that makes any sense. Like that's
it's a
not
very
really what
deep
defines
topic,
femininity.
actually, and that's kind of the whole point of the artwork. I mean, she is like a sex coach. She's been sort of studying to all that kind of stuff, and so she's been speaking to a lot of people about like their relationship to their femininity and this sort of thing. So the work's sort of been drawn from those interviews basically, and it's quite interesting and thought provoking and just generally provoking.
It's quite provoking.
It's I quite enjoy it. I hope you guys enjoy it when you come to see it.
Yeah, well, I've seen a lot of art on Insta, and it's bright.
It is
vibrant colours.
Trust me,
it's
again,
very out there.
as I spent 10 hours putting up like 10-foot
Right.
pieces, I was just like, Jesus Christ, my eyes. Maybe that's why I've had a banging headache.
It's really great.
Just
because
need
we've
shades
got
next
such
time.
a white space there.
Yeah.
Always for people who've been to Wine Freedom, it's just this big white warehouse essentially, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's totally
visually
transformed.
going on.
actually.
Yeah, with the artwork up, it looks amazing.
And it's huge, big, bold work, like just in content and in like literally as well. But yeah,
It gets the conversation
There's
going.
a massive strap on one of the walls. So there you go.
it's the female pegging one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This conversation
Bit of pegging.
going, isn't it? So-
But I mean, again, that's about sort of women sort of like recapturing that masculine energy and taking
Yeah, I
control.
wouldn't even see it
and-
as masculine energy. It's just that kind of like femininity as strength, basically.
I guess, yeah. I mean, if I put a strap on and fuck someone, I'd feel pretty.
I'd feel pretty feminine and
Yeah.
strong. Thank you.
I don't know, you guys, how do you feel about pegging? Where are we on pegging?
You know what? I'm up for it, but not with someone that's never done it before.
Yeah, no.
I'll be like,
I know what
my
you
wife,
mean.
I'm like, we brought it up and
Yeah.
like,
Lube, where's the lube, guys?
like,
Come
no,
on.
you've not done this. I want someone that
No.
knows what they're doing if this is going to happen.
I know
Anyway,
it's
food
pretty hard to
podcast.
say to your wife, I suppose. But still, I get the point.
I read an interesting Vice article the other day. You know when you fall down a rabbit hole, and it was instructions for guys on how to speak to your girlfriend about asking to be pegged.
Oh, right.
So the conversation's taken a turn.
Yeah. How long is the art up for? Is it a whole month or?
Yeah, pretty much. Was it March 28th? I think we were up to something like that. I can check my calendar. But
Yeah, I don't know what she
Yeah.
said to you when
So
she's
get
taken
down.
it down, but it's definitely
Yeah.
the end of the month. It's supposed to
down.
be
I
up
think
for
it'll probably
most
be
of
me
March.
taking it down.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
it
there you
available
go.
to buy as well?
It is available,
available
to
to
buy, so hopefully it will be all sold by the end of the exhibition.
I've already got dibs on the best piece.
which is about what is it?
Being
the
burnt out.
It's the burnout.
Burn out. And I was like,
So your
I remember
hospitality
at the
themed, that
start,
one.
yeah, I was like this, especially for the whole COVID time for me was just when everyone else was getting furloughed, I was working 90-hour weeks and I was like burnt out to shit. And so yeah, when I saw that piece, it's just like a big 10-foot like banner that just says burnout with some big lips, and I was just like, I feel like I relate to this. And then after spending 10 hours screaming at the walls trying to put this artwork up, I looked at that and I was like, kind of made me a little bit angry. I was just like, oh, I was like, I still want it, but
It's taunting you.
but yeah, it did feel like it was taunting me. I was just like, God damn it.
It is
Wow.
up for most of the month. We will have some other events on. We've got
We've got our
female
wine
wine
bottles as well.
tasting.
The wine bottles are pretty cool.
So she's done limited edition labels for wine bottles that are also available to buy.
Which I'll be
as
putting
in
all the
with
labels
wine
on
in.
tomorrow.
And you've got a
We've
wine
got-
flight that's
yeah,
all wine from.
Female winemaker
Female
wine
winemakers,
flights. Are we just going to have the one on? I think we've got options for female winemaker wine flights.
We'll be changing them like week by week,
Yeah.
really. So we'll be tweaking them a little bit. So it won't be
That's
like the
it.
same winemakers. We'll sort of mix it up over the month.
On the 20th, on a Sunday, we've got a female voices event on with a singer-songwriter called Lucy Mellonfield, who does really lovely sort of folky, jazzy, atmospheric stuff, and a poet, a female poet, who's going to read some poetry, which is going to be a really nice event. And then, yeah, at the end of the month, we're supposed to have an all-female 6-course menu on and hopefully on Mother's
But we're
Day.
working on
We're
this.
working on it at the moment.
But it's so yeah, definitely if your mother's a sort of person who doesn't mind having food with someone with a strap on, like
In front of them.
sat right next to her, then like we are
Yeah.
totally the place for you.
Thanks very much for coming on and talking about
Looks a little bit
Pegging.
scared.
difficult
Thanks, we're gonna go now. You guys are terrifying.
This is the pegging episode.
pegging episode. No, you know what? I'm glad we had this conversation because talking about International Women's Day, and we
Yeah.
feel awkward because we're
Right.
two blokes. Like we have empathy, high levels of empathy, but we don't have true empathy because we've never lived it. You know.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have you two on to come and
Well,
give
thanks
us
for
a little-
asking us, man. Because like people don't often ask these questions. Actually, to be fair.
All right, we ain't got time for my questions. We're gonna get
Oh
thrown
no,
out
I
in a
should have
sec.
more questions.
Did you want to?
Oh no, it's just a favourite TV show and stuff like that. Question.
Oh.
Oh,
watch
we can
much
quickly do that. Can
Oh,
we
Schitt's
do that?
Creek.
I'll do them really, really quick.
5 minutes
Oh, we'll
before the
do
lights
it.
go out.
Okay.
Yeah, so the lights go down in a minute. We'll be very quick with these. So please, quick answers. Favourite TV show?
Bollocks.
I haven't heard of that one.
That's not a TV show.
Oh shit! You answer.
I'm a real sucker for RuPaul's Drag Race, although it's like in its 13th
100th
edition,
season.
100 seasons, and it's all the same every time. But I'm still watching it. But it's a good one because that's also one where you can really find like strength and femininity. Because I think drag is one of those amazing examples of like hyper femininity as armor almost.
Vic?
Gossip Girl. That's not my answer, but
No,
it's the only thing that's
next.
popping in my head.
What's your favourite movie?
Oh God, I'm such a basic bitch.
Favorite movie? Jeez, maybe Lost in Translation.
It's a good one.
Howl's Moving Castle. Studio
Yeah, that's a
Ghibli.
great
Love
one.
that film.
Yeah.
Nice. Favourite big fast food chain?
Meat Shack. I don't eat fast food.
Five Guys.
Yeah,
Isn't
Five
it
Guys. A lot of
probably?
people say Five Guys.
Yeah, let's go
Yeah.
with Five Guys. Yeah, I don't.
What's your favourite type of takeaway?
Meat Shack. I love Meat Shack. I'm vegetarian now as well. I need to think of a better answer. Bone Daddy. No shit. Indian. No, Flakes from Moseley because they always give me loads of free scallops. Love them. With a bottle of champagne.
Pizza.
Can't go
Pizza,
wrong with
meat,
pizza.
pizza, that's
Domino's.
perfect.
Any
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, there's
pizza.
loads
Really, I
of
don't
them.
discriminate.
And what's your favourite food destination in the world?
South Africa. 100% love it. And best wine destination.
Yeah, wine destination is a great wine destination. Yeah, Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Or Asia in general, the whole of it. Can't go wrong.
Isn't it good luck being a vegetarian in South Africa?
Yeah.
It's what?
Wow.
No, it's not too bad actually because I eat fish, so that's
Oh,
fine.
okay.
But oh my god, the
Heavy on
food
the-
in South
Heavy
Africa
on
is
the
incredible.
Sorry.
So good.
That was good.
Heavy bro. I bet you got South
racist.
African family. I'm
That's a good accent.
I love South Africa.
Awesome.
You love a good braai. As a vegetarian.
Hey man, you called me racist earlier for thinking about doing an Irish
That's literally
accent.
when you said South Africa. I was just like, what? Yes.
Food is incredible.
all
It's
the
incredible.
sausage and meat.
So good. Best sushi I've ever had, and I've been to Japan.
Yeah. Cape Town's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, Cape Town sushi. Oh, it's incredible.
Cool.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.